Here's my bracket for the 2024 March Madness. Let's not, diddy around and waste your guys' time. UConn, Stetson. Stetson, congrats. First tournament, but come on. The Huskies are going to win. FAU, I was absolutely flabbergasted when the Owls got an 8 seed with two quad 4 losses, a quad 3 loss. This team doesn't seem like an 8 seed, but also Northwestern's a little bit banged up. So it's definitely, a classic 8-9 coin toss. I'm leaning towards Northwestern at the moment to beat FAU. I know people still like FAU, but they just seem this year, they don't seem like the same team. They seem to be kind of more playing as they're playing down to their competition compared to last year where, they went on the run, which means they could play up to their competition and play up to the level that was put into their preseason expectations. But I personally like Northwestern and Boo Buie to get it done. San Diego State UAB. UAB's solid looking, and I do like some 12-5 upsets, even though the last couple years we haven't seen as many 12-5 upsets than we have as, normal. 12-5's been one of the most popular seed line upset picks. And if I'm remembering correctly, there wasn't one last year. Give me the Aztecs and San Diego State. A little bit overseeded, which is weird compared to the rest of the Mountain West Conference. Auburn, Yale. Yale barely beat Brown today on a buzzer beater. This Auburn team, yeah, they suck. They suck at quad one games, but give me Auburn. This team is definitely going to be a team that, if you're going to look at teams with strong metrics, Auburn has that. They won the SEC championship. I like Auburn to beat Yale. Duquesne, little bit of a shock to be an 11 seed. I kind of like BYU to beat them. Strong 3-point shooting out of the Cougars. Did pretty well in their first year in the Big 12. And yeah, I kind of like BYU. Duquesne's not a bad team. They definitely could, if BYU struggles to shoot it, and that's kind of been their problem. When BYU's on and they're making threes, they're a tough team to beat. If they're not, they can be beaten. Give me Illinois over Morehead State. I just don't see, and it seems like every year there isn't really an interesting 3 seed or a 14 seed over a 3 seed. Seems like that's one of the seed lines that doesn't get upset the most. We've seen a lot of 15 seeds recently, but not many 14 seeds. Next, we got Washington State and Drake, and man, this is a tough game to pick because Drake's a solid mid-major. Tucker DeVries and that team, Drake's going to be good. Washington State had their best year in a while. I'm going to lean Drake, especially because this game's in Omaha, I believe. Yeah, it's in Omaha, so it's pretty close for Iowa, for Drake, who's out of Iowa. And then give me Iowa State. Give me a battle of the two Iowa teams. I don't think there's going to be a single 15 seed to be upset because a lot of the 15 and 16 seeds aren't the top teams in their conference, and some of them are a little bit lower. Obviously, South Dakota State was the top team in the Summit League, and originally when they won, they were projected as a 16 seed. Just goes to show you how many upsets in some of these conference tournament games. Moving on to the South region, Houston, Longwood, give me Houston. Nebraska and Texas A&M. Now this is interesting. Texas A&M's got a whole bunch of quad 4 losses. They lose a ton of games, but they also can beat teams. This game's in Memphis, so not necessarily a super, complete home field advantage in terms of travel. It's, roughly even as it can be. Nebraska is a team that could shoot the three well. I kind of like Nebraska to win this, to finally get their first ever win in the NCAA tournament. Wisconsin and James Madison. Now, this is tough. I kind of like James Madison. I've always liked James Madison from the start of the season when they won at Michigan State. And Wisconsin has been struggling recently. And it's definitely a team to look out for. I'm going to actually go Wisconsin to win this only because how they've looked recently, they actually look good. And give me Duke to beat Vermont. I just don't think it's Vermont's year. I just don't see it. I'm sorry, Vermont. You're always in the tournament. You destroy the America East. I just don't think this is your year, but they're going to play Duke close. This isn't going to be a blowout. I think Duke barely edges them out. Texas Tech and NC State. I was looking at the percentage of picked earlier today, like a couple hours ago. NC State was the only, I think, really team under a 10 seed, maybe. They were the only 11 seed that was picked more than Texas Tech. They were picked more as an 11 seed over any of the other 6 seeds, and I disagree. We saw it with Virginia Tech a few years ago with a team that got hot and won the ACC championship, got an 11 seed. Everybody loved them as an 11 over a 6 pick over, what was it, Texas? Over another Big 12 team. I just think Texas Tech's the better team. Congrats on NC State for winning 5 games in a row. I think they're going to be tired. I think Texas Tech is just the better team, and I think Texas Tech gets it done. Give me Kentucky over Oakland. Give me Marquette over Western Kentucky, skipping over there. Florida did have an injury in the SEC championship game, and Boise and Colorado are both underseeded. They both shouldn't have been 10 seeds. They're both teams that honestly should have been on the 8-9 line, and they would have been teams that I would have really looked at for beating a 1 seed, but they're on the 10 line. I think either team that comes out of there has a good chance to beat Florida, and Florida was a team that I really liked as a popular pick that I was going to before, obviously the SEC championship, that I was looking as a kind of Cinderella, 7, 8, 9 seed to beat a 1 seed. But sadly, with that injury, I'm not really sure. North Carolina wins. I like Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State's the better team than Michigan State. I know people are like, don't bet on Izzo in March. Michigan State lives for March. I think Mississippi State, they play good defense. They've got some guys who could score. I really like this Mississippi State team. I actually picked a bracket for the SEC championship game, my own little personal bracket. I picked Mississippi State to beat Tennessee. I saw that coming. I did have them go all the way to the SEC championship. They ended up losing to Auburn, so I did get it wrong, but I do think Mississippi State's got a good chance. And here is our classic mid-major good teams playing each other, St. Mary's and Grand Canyon, with 2 great mid-major schools having to play each other. I like St. Mary's. This was projected to be their best team in a while. They won the West Coast Conference, which they were preseason picked to win the conference. And you've got Grand Canyon, who also is a really good team. I just think this is St. Mary's' year. I don't see Charleston beating Alabama. There's another 13 seed I like a lot more than this Charleston team, which I will be picking. You'll see in a moment. But yeah, Alabama, I select to move on. Clemson versus New Mexico. Last I looked, New Mexico was favored by 1.5 points. I agree with it. I don't think Clemson should have been a 6 seed. I think they're more of a 7 seed personally. If I had to move up one of the 7 seeds, I'd probably have moved up Florida to the 6th line, in my opinion, and dropped Clemson. That's my personal opinions. But give me New Mexico. They've got great guard play. This is a team that, if they are on, they are a scary team. They've got good rebounding. They've got guys who could rebound. JT Toppin's a great freshman. They've got House, Mashburn, Dent. I know Dent's been, a little bit hurt as of recently, but I really do like this team. And they'll get Baylor in the 2nd round. Dayton versus Nevada, another mid-major face-off, especially on the 7-10 line. I like Nevada. Nevada was underseeded. They should have been on an 8-9 line. Dayton, I just don't really see the love for Dayton. Now, I could be biased because, anyways, I might be biased, but I just don't see it in Dayton. They really just didn't impress me in conference play. They played a ton of close games. Their metrics are decently high, being in the 20s and the KenPom net and all of that, but I just don't see it. I personally like Nevada a little bit more to win, and then give me Arizona to beat Long Beach State. And then the Midwest region, where we're gonna get a little bit funky. So give me Purdue to beat Montana State and Grambling. between Utah State and TCU. Give me this is a little bit hard. Utah State, I still think was underseeded, and I know there's this whole perception about the Mountain West struggling. I do actually like TCU a little bit better. I think they have, really great speed, and they are a really solid team. Utah State's not a bad team, but again, they rely on a lot more of a post player in Great Osobor. And I just think with a team that is a little bit more post led and has, better post play, I just don't think it's going to be in the cards for them. And then next, we've got Gonzaga and McNeese. Between these two, Gonzaga is definitely a really good team. Still, they were way overseeded, though. This Gonzaga team is not a 5 seed. They're probably more of a 6 or a 7. I think South Carolina deserved a 5 seed over them. Heck, I would even put BYU or Texas Tech over them. I think they're definitely overseeded, and this McNeese team is pretty impressive with Will Wade and what that team's rebounded. So I'm going to actually pick McNeese. Kansas versus Samford. Kansas was banged up in the Big 12 tournament. This team isn't very deep. They haven't been very deep all season. They don't play many guys. You could clearly see they've been injured down the stretch. Give me Samford. This is a team that likes to get out. They like to run. They like to press. This is a team that likes to speed teams up. They play really fast. They take a lot of threes. I do really like this Samford team to upset Kansas, and that gives us a 12-13 and a round of 32. Now, South Carolina-Oregon is another interesting 6-11 match. South Carolina is a team that has won a ton of close games, similar to Providence back a couple years ago, and we know South Dakota State was a very trendy 12-5 upset pick there with how they shot the three with Baylor Shireman and all the people that played for them back then. Oregon is a team that got hot. They weren't a bad team in the Pac-12. They were the 4th seed in the Pac-12, but in a fairly weak Pac-12 in comparison. I like South Carolina to hang on to win, but this is definitely going to be a close game. I could see either team. Give me Creighton over Akron. Sorry, Akron. And then Texas versus UVA, the winner of UVA and Colorado State. I do not know how UVA got in. This team is bad. They went 2-7 in quad ones. Their metrics are awful. Every game they played against, really good teams, they got blown out. They got blown out by Duke. They got blown out by North Carolina. They've just gotten blown out by so many tournament teams, and it's just crazy. I think Colorado State wins it, but I don't think they have enough to beat Texas. I think Texas beats them, and Tennessee beats St. Peter's and the Peacocks. I don't think there's going to be a magical St. Peter's run, and I'm surprised they were a 15 seed. I honestly thought St. Peter's was going to be a 16 seed, so I was a little bit surprised. I honestly thought Longwood might have taken that last 15 and they would have been pushed up to the 16 line. It would have been hilarious if they were 16 and they got matched up Purdue. I was hoping for that. We did not get that. Let's go back up to the East and let's finish up the East. So UConn, Northwestern, give me UConn. While Northwestern is good and boo booey, I think if they were fully healthy, they might have contested a little bit better, but again, I'm just not very sure about how far this Northwestern team can go, and UConn just looks absolutely dominant. Give me Auburn against San Diego State. They're a very physical team. They're a very deep team. They are a team who I definitely can see upsetting UConn and beating UConn. Now, do I think that happens? No, but Auburn is definitely a team that can beat UConn for sure, and I would not be surprised about it. I do really like UConn, though. Illinois, BYU, both teams can absolutely put the ball in the basket. Both of these teams can score. While BYU does a lot of it beyond the three-point line, I just think they're very, hot and cold. They are a team who can absolutely get hot, and they can make a run. But they are also a team that can be cold and lose to Duquesne. And when you're making a bracket, you kind of want to, avoid, taking too many hot and cold teams. I prefer Illinois. I think Illinois is a lot more consistent with their scoring, and they are a team who I just think overall is better. Now, not necessarily the best teams always win March Madness, because Purdue, really good team last year, lost to FDU, but they did have flaws in their game. Now, Iowa State and Drake is a very interesting game. I do think Drake could pull off the upset, and we saw what Iowa State did in the Big 12 championship, and because of that, I do like Iowa State to win this game. This Iowa State's a really good team. They are very great defensively. They force you to turn over the ball. They score off your turnovers. They are definitely a scary team. The one thing is, what can they do in the half court? That might be one of their more struggles. And I do think they're going to be able to get out and beat Illinois. I definitely can see Illinois winning, but I do think against a UConn team that is, again, super athletic, I don't think this UConn team's going to have the struggles turning over the ball like Iowa State. So give me UConn to beat Iowa State in this. Now, I have filled out a couple of brackets. Well, I've filled out one bracket, but this is basically my first bracket. If you are going to beat this Houston team, it's going to be on 3-point shooting. This Nebraska team beat Purdue. And I definitely do think there's a chance an 8 or a 9 can beat a 1 seed. And if there's going to be an 8 or a 9 seed to beat a 1 seed, I think Nebraska's got a really good chance. But give me Houston. I really like Nebraska as a potential upset pick, but I think Houston is just so good. And before the brackets even got released, I was thinking Houston will at least make the Sweet 16 in my brackets, so that's what I'm going to go with. Wisconsin versus Duke. Now, I am a little bit scared to put Wisconsin in the Sweet 16 just because this James Madison game could be an upset. Then you've got Duke and Vermont. I definitely can see both of these teams, surprising us with an upset. I kind of want to go with Wisconsin because they've been looking better as of late, and Duke has kind of just... They haven't been super impressive, and I think part of the issue is they've played in an ACC, and I know the whole narrative is the ACC is weaker, but it's kind of true. You look at how many teams the ACC got in, and everybody's going to say, well, the ACC always does well, but it's a one-game elimination, and yes, the best ACC teams it just sounds stupid, but they do very well in the tournament. But I think Wisconsin, a little bit hotter. Actually, I'm gonna go Duke because there's actually a statistic about teams not doing very well. Well, actually, I should have taken BYU over Illinois. I'm gonna keep it Wisconsin, and then give me Houston over Wisconsin. I think Houston's gonna slow them down. They're gonna grind them up. They're gonna force turnovers, and they're just gonna, force it to be their style of play. Now, Kentucky versus Texas Tech is a very interesting game. Kentucky is a team that can absolutely flat out score. Texas Tech, you think of the kind of Texas Tech being a very defensive heavy, very slower team. That is not this Texas Tech. They definitely can score. And this game's probably going to be decently high scoring if these two do meet. I do like Kentucky more in a track meet, so give me them. Then Colorado, Boise, and Marquette. I think Colorado is going to win. And then Marquette, Kolek is still a little bit hurt. They haven't looked bad without Kolek, but they also haven't looked great without Kolek. They've won the games they've needed to, and Cam Jones is an absolute beast. Iguodaro's also really good, so they have two guys who could score. Kolek's been fine. You've got a Colorado team who I think is going to beat Boise State. That's why I'm saying Colorado. It's hard because if Boise wins, I almost like Marquette better than Boise, but if Colorado wins, I almost like Colorado more than Marquette. I'm going to go Colorado with an upset as we see a 10 seed move on to the Sweet 16. I think they're a very talented team. I think they got underseeded. They've got NBA talent. And then give me Kentucky beating Colorado and Boise. And then give me Houston. You might be saying, oh, you're just going to pick all chalk. Come on. Give me some time. You won't see all chalk. North Carolina, Mississippi State. Here we go. A defensive great team in Mississippi State. I do like the Bulldogs to take down North Carolina. Now, then, and I do think they've got the chops to beat them. They just beat Tennessee in the SEC championship. This is a team that can upset North Carolina, and I think they're one of the better teams and more likely teams to upset in 8 or 9. I do think North Carolina, while very good, I think they've shown kind of some flaws and some issues. They definitely were one of the best ACC teams. Moving on to St. Mary's and St. Mary's and Alabama. Very interesting game. This game's being played in Spokane, Washington, a lot closer to St. Mary's than it is to Alabama. Super far for Alabama. So is it for Charleston. Very long flights. Now, St. Mary's and Alabama, very interesting game. You've got more of a defensive heavy, slow down the pace, and then a really fast, high-scoring Alabama team. I think St. Mary's, a little bit closer, ends up winning this game, and they take down Alabama. I think this is St. Mary's best team. I know they've had some injuries, but they beat Gonzaga after kind of getting taken down in their own gym. I thought Gonzaga was going to win the conference tournament after seeing Gonzaga just beat them in their own gym. New Mexico and Baylor, if we do end up getting this matchup, oh my gosh, great guard play from both Baylor, from New Mexico. This is going to be a fun game. Give me the Lobos. Moving on. Then we've got Arizona and Nevada. And Arizona obviously has got the title as a choker, similar to Purdue, similar to Houston, who have had great teams, teams that should have won national championships, and they just haven't gotten it done yet. And so Arizona and Nevada is definitely interesting. 2 West Coast schools. Nevada's West. Well, not technically West Coast, but, Western schools. Arizona isn't technically West Coast either, but I do like Arizona and Caleb Love, and it's hard because this Arizona team constantly has had games where, in my mind, they should have destroyed the Pac-12, and they kind of did against some of the better teams, but they also dropped weird games, like at Oregon State. So if a team comes out and they shoot, The issue is Arizona's lost games where teams have come out and they've just shot lights out beyond the 3-point arc, which, funny enough, if a team's going to beat them, I don't know if Nevada's definitely going to be that 3-point shooting team, and that's why I'm going to take Arizona. I think Baylor is one of the better teams. If Baylor wins this and we get Baylor-Arizona, Baylor is a team that shoots lights out from 3. I would like Baylor in this matchup. Now, Arizona and New Mexico, definitely interesting. Give me St. Mary's over Mississippi State. Cinderella run ends there. I do think St. Mary's has a little bit more experience and just their overall, statistically, a better team where they are metrics-wise. Give me St. Mary's and the Gales. And then I would love to take New Mexico. And this is the West region. So these teams are playing at home, basically, playing in a region favorable to each other. But give me Arizona, and give me Arizona over St. Mary's. I think their style of play is a little bit better. And I know you're saying, oh, it's super chalky now. Come on. But it's just so hard to pick New Mexico over St. Mary's. Now we get into the Midwest region. We've got Purdue and TCU. I think this Purdue team's better. I know there's the whole chokers aspect. People are joking about taking Montana State and Grambling. TCU definitely is a nightmare matchup for the Boilermakers. I think they squeak by. And funny enough, if Samford ends up beating McNeese, it would actually be a rematch. Purdue blew the brakes off Samford, but I don't think this is the same Samford team. But I don't think they're going to play them. Give me McNeese. McNeese is definitely going to be an interesting game in this matchup. And I don't know who I necessarily like. I'm kidding. Give me Purdue. It's really hard to go against Purdue. And then Creighton, South Carolina. South Carolina's played a lot of close games. They're definitely more of a slow it down tempo. Creighton, not necessarily a fast tempo, but they shoot threes. They live by the three, die by the three. If they're shooting well, they are hard to beat. Ask UConn in that game at Omaha. I was actually in attendance for that game. I was there for the court storm. I didn't storm the court, but I was there. Give me Creighton. And then Texas and Tennessee. I just think Texas is definitely better in this matchup. And they're an okay 7 seed, but I mean, they almost lost to Louisville. Louisville, who lost to DePaul. Like, I know that was all the way back in November, but I don't think Texas has really made any strides. Dalton Connect is great. Then we get Creighton and Tennessee. You got a physical defense in Tennessee. I think it's a nightmare matchup for Creighton, and it's definitely interesting. Creighton's got, Ryan Kalkbrenner. They've got Ryan Nembhard. Nah, I'm kidding. Nembhard's over here in Gonzaga. How funny would it be? Gonzaga definitely has the talent to make an Elite Eight run. How funny would it be for Creighton and Gonzaga to meet up in the Elite Eight? You got Ryan Nembhard with his, transferring versus his old team in Creighton. Oh, that storyline would be great. Give me Creighton. I do like Creighton a little bit more to beat Purdue. And then Creighton versus Purdue. I like Creighton's three-point shooting team to beat them. And actually, I'm going to change this. Give me New Mexico. Screw it. I want more upsets. Give me New Mexico. I'm sorry. I changed my mind. I wanted more upsets. Give me St. Mary's in the rematch against New Mexico. No, screw it. Give me New Mexico. Let's go Lobos. They're going to the Final Four. Their run stops shortly against UConn. Give me Houston. I know, a little bit boring, 2-1 seeds. But hey, we're going bold predictions. Give me UConn. I love their guard play. Or New Mexico to make a run. I love their guard play. Give me UConn. I just think they're far away the best team. They've been like the best team all season. In terms of score, I'm thinking around 70s, 60s, so that put it around the 130s. I'm gonna go 131 for the score. And this is my bracket. Give me New Mexico making the run. And if they lose to Clemson, well, this bracket's chalked. But, I do think UConn's going to end up being the national championship. You got to take risks. You got to have fun. It's March Madness. Pick some upsets. Have some fun. And, so this is my bracket. UConn winning. Total score of 131. Go fill out your brackets. Have fun. And I'll see you guys next time.